Hello, this is Chula Vista Councilmember Mike Diaz, and you're going to watch another version of my This Week at City Hall. I represent Southwest Chula Vista, or Chula Vista District 4, which is everything south of L Street and west of 805. Southwest Chula Vista, pretty much the Council Park area for those of you that lived in Chula Vista for a long time. If you want any more information on what's going on, you can always visit my webpage at cvd4.org. And you can click on my voting record link, and it will have all the information that we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's move on for this week at City Hall. This is for the February 26th meeting, and like the last three meetings, this meeting was also very short. Most of the items were on consent, and we I think only voted on a couple of items. And so so let's talk about that. Before we move on to consent, I just wanted to say, I know it looks a little bit different than my typical YouTube videos, but I decided to change it up. I had one of our watchers said, Mike, stop reading the teleprompter. And so today I'm going to try and just go off my notes and see how it goes and be a little bit more Mike Diaz. So let's move on to the consent. So the following items were on our consent calendar, which means that the City Council can take all of them together and vote on them with one vote, unless somebody decides to pull the vote, and that could be somebody from the community, a City Council member, somebody from staff. And as a matter of fact, somebody did pull one this time. It was item 4, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So let's talk about item 2. Item 2 was the second reading of our contribution limits. And so what happens is anytime that we try to change or add an ordinance or change an ordinance at the city, it requires 2 readings or 2 whacks at the dais. And this happens to be our second whack at it. In the last council meeting, we approved the changes in our campaign finance limits, and this time it was just in consent. There was really nothing to talk about since we already agreed to the same thing in the last one. But just for those of you that have not had a chance to watch the last one, I'll go over it real quickly. Basically, City Council, people like me, we have no real power in changing campaign finance laws in the City of Chula Vista. That's all done by the voters. And what happened is the voters said, look, let's deal with campaign contributions based on CPI. That way nobody can get their filthy paws on it and change it or raise it or lower it depending on the political will of the elected officials. And so basically our city clerk has looked at the CPI and determined that it was time to raise it. I believe we do it every 2 years. And so basically all they went up from was individual limits were at $320. They are now at $350. And for political parties, which by the way is like the Democratic Party, Republican Party, those kind of parties, they were at $1,120. Now they can contribute $1,190. And I forget what the CPI was, but it wasn't much. I think it was only a couple percent. So that pretty much was item number 2. So let's move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is going to get a little sticky here because we're going to talk about a bunch of numbers here. Item 3 was an investment report by our city treasurer, David Bilby, who's our treasurer. And basically what he told us was that we had total cash and investments held by the city were $290 million. And we had a total of cash and investments held by trustees of about $115 million. So what does that mean? Well, basically, it means that Bilby pretty much managed $290 million, and we had another $115 million that were managed by other folks. So let's move on. So let's talk about some of the investments that we have. Through the State of California Local Agency Investment Fund, we had about $1.7 million in that fund. Another fund that we have, it's a pooled fund, is the County of San Diego Pooled Investment Fund, which had about $10 million. I'm rounding everything up for us so we don't have to be so precise. And then we had about $25 million in cash deposits in accrued interest on our investments. And so all of these investments are done in compliance with government codes and the Chula Vista investment policy. So what happens is we have to follow a government code in how we invest, as well as the city council. And so so a lot of folks will say, well, why aren't you making more on those investments? Well, because Bilby's hands are tied by state and federal laws, as well as the city council investment policy. Okay, so, oh, by the way, before I move on, I just saw another point here that we did have 12 investments that matured, totaling about $39 million, and some of those funds were transferred to other funds, and it gets way into the weeds. I don't want to do that here and bore you, but you can always go to my webpage, cbd4.org, click on my voting link. You can go to this item, and it'll give you all the documentation, all the files, how I voted, and all that great information. So, trying to get to sleep? Go to the webpage. You can read this up. There's a lot to read on item number 3. So, item 4, what was a consent? We actually pulled that. Actually, the mayor, Casillas Salas, pulled it because we had a constituent that was from my district, and I was going to pull it as well, but she beat me to the punch, that pulled it. So we heard this before the council and then voted on it separately. And this item happened to be a project for a bike lane that runs the entire length of Broadway, all the way from C Street to Main Street. But you know what? We sent out bids, got nothing. So it's like, okay, what do? We want to get the striping done. How do we change that? So staff decided to sweeten the pot by adding some additional work to do some fiber optic along Broadway, and it would connect, and that fiber optic would connect about 17 stoplights. So we added that to the project, and guess what? We got a couple of bidders. One of them we looked at, we said, maybe not. We picked Tri-Group Construction, and they were the ones that got the bid from us. And but we had a concern from a constituent saying, hey, I think these guys have had some labor issues, and so we pulled it, and to make sure that there wasn't going to be any problems with this vendor. And so basically what we did is, or I did when we brought it before council, I asked staff to make sure that the contractor would be paying prevailing wages in this contract, and they would also ensure that all of their employees got paid overtime if they were due overtime, and that they would track all of their hours. By the way, that's already law, but we just wanted to make sure that we would reiterate that with the contractor to make sure that they took care of all that. And again, the city council approved the contract with Tri-Group Construction, and it was voted unanimously. And by the way, when I talked to staff, they did say that the city's had several other contracts with Tri-Group Construction, and they've always done a pretty good job for us. And so it wasn't a problem to approve that, and it was unanimous. Okay, let's go to item number 5. We're moving quite along here. We're almost done. So let me see. So on January 15, 2019, Transnet gave the city and its member agencies an update on the Transnet revenue funds or the forecast for the local street improvement program. So basically they said, look, for fiscal year 2018-19 through 2022-23, we're going to get about $6 million through Transnet, right? And so so the reason this was on the the reason it went before city council was because the staff just wanted to do an administrative transfer. Let's just move it from Transnet to the program where it belongs. So it's really administrative. It was a simple request, and so the city council approved it unanimously. So item number 6, and we're almost there. We only got 2 more left. So item number 6 was a presentation from the County of San Diego and our city staff on a river restoration project that goes along the OVRP, or the Otay Valley Regional Park area. And I wish I had some documentation or some pictures or something for you. I don't. I did request staff to give that to us, and it's on its way. But maybe I'll share that with you at another YouTube video that I have for you. So this was just informational. We didn't need to vote, and so we accepted the report. Okay, it's pretty simple. Item number 7. Again, I wish we really had some concept drawings for you. We saw them at the council. I was told that they were going to send them to us, but they just never got to me in time. I still don't have them. I'll share them with you a little bit later on. So item 7 is basically the deck at the Civic Library. We're going to put a park deck at the rear side of the library. It's about 5,000 square foot. Boy, the concept drawings that we got were awesome. The public will be able to hang out there. They'll be able to do music and other events there, and it'll be out in the open. Really neat project, and so I'll try to share that with you a little bit later on. Again, this was just an update. There was nothing really to vote on. We already had approved the project, so this was just for the council to view. That's it. That's all we had. Very short council meeting, February 26th of 2019. And that's all I have for this week at City Hall. And I hope that you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a lot to see there. I'm going to be adding other YouTube channel stuff for you, like what's going on at Orange and Palomar, some of the stuff they're doing in the streets, disc golf. I got a bunch of neat information for you on some of my other channels. Please subscribe and watch those channels and share them with your friends. Let them know that we got some really neat stuff to share with you on YouTube. If you have any questions, you can always contact my office. You can call me at 619-409-3822. Or if you like email, you can email me, mdiaz@chulavistaca.gov, mdiaz@chulavistaca.gov. My webpage is cvd4.org, or Facebook at Councilmember Mike Diaz. That's all I got for you. Goodbye, and God bless.